Hello, anatomy students. We're talking about the organization of the nervous system today. There's a handout that goes with this, so grab that, grab a pen or a pencil, and let's get started. First of all, the nervous system is the master and the master control and communication system of the body. And if you look to the picture over on the left, you'll see that it's being compared with the endocrine system. Why? Because they're going to work together in order to maintain homeostasis within our bodies. And so you can read through the differences between those two systems. But as far as the nervous system is concerned, it acts very quickly. It is very specific, so it's going to stimulate specific cells or specific groups of cells, and it can cause immediate responses. The endocrine system in general is going to act a little bit slower, and its effects are going to be more widespread throughout the body. So the nervous system has three overlapping functions. Sensory receptors are going to monitor changes in our environment. The changes are called stimuli, and the gathered information, all the stimuli kind of packaged together, is called sensory input. The nervous system is going to process and interpret that sensory input, and it's going to decide what needs to be done. So it's going to provide meaning. It's going to kind of figure out what does our body have to do in order to respond appropriately to this stimuli. And so that whole process has a special name, which is called integration. And then our nervous system will generate a response, also an effect, by activating muscles or glands via motor output. So, for example, if you are driving in your car and you see a stoplight, and you know that you are supposed to stop there, and so you take your foot and you press on that brake pedal in order to slow your car down, you should be able to point out what the sensory input is, what the integration is, and what the response is. In this case, the sensory input is seeing that red light, and the integration is assigning meaning to that red light, which is stop. And then the response is you putting your foot on the brake pedal in order to slow your car down. All right, we can classify the nervous system by structure or by function. If we're classifying by structure, then that means that we are dividing it up into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. And the functional classification would be sensory and motor. So if you take a look at this slide, you can see that I've color-coded the text with the colors that are on the picture. So sense organs are going to collect sensory afferent input that's going to travel through the central nervous system to the central nervous system. So the blue is just following the blue on the picture to the left. Then the central nervous system sends information back to the peripheral nervous system. And then the peripheral nervous system is going to send motor or efferent information to the somatic nervous system. And the somatic nervous system is largely going to be in charge of skeletal muscle. And if it's autonomic, then it's going to cause changes in cardiac smooth muscles and glands. The autonomic nervous system is further divided into two more portions, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic divisions. So let's look a little bit more closely at the structural clarification of the nervous system. So over on our picture to the right, the brain and the spinal cord makes up the central nervous system. They're colored in red, and they are going to interpret incoming sensory information. They're going to use integration as the command center. So when that sensory information comes in, integration occurs, and then an effect is kind of sent out through the motor neurons. But it's also going to issue outgoing instructions in order to generate responses, right? Like if you see a bear in the woods, it's not only your legs and feet that are like pumping to run, right? Like you've got to activate all kinds of muscles there. So anyway, that you're going to need a boss in order to figure out who needs to do what in order to allow for your body to survive. All right, now we're looking at the functional classification of the nervous system. The peripheral nervous system has nerves that extend from the brain and the spinal cord. So if they're extending from the spinal cord, they're called spinal nerves. And then if they're extending from the brain, then they are called cranial nerves. Their functions is to facilitate communication lines between sensory organs, the central nervous system, and glands and muscles. The sensory or the afferent division and the motor or the efferent division are found only in the peripheral nervous system. For the sensory or the afferent division, the nerves convey impulses to the central nervous system. The somatic sensory fibers carry info from sensory receptors in the skin, skeletal muscles, and joints. And then the visceral sensory or afferent fibers carry info from the visceral organs. So like that, those are your guts, like the intestines, the liver, the stomach, the spleen. And they're going to carry information from those organs over to the central nervous system. The motor division contains nerve fibers that carry impulses away from the central nervous system. All right, our motor division has two subdivisions, the somatic subdivision and the autonomic subdivision. The somatic subdivision consciously controls skeletal muscles. So remember that this is efferent. So this is where the response is being generated. So when the brain tells your knee to kick out, then it's going to stimulate your muscles in order to do so. The autonomic nervous system, however, is involuntary, which means that smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, glands, all of that stuff is going to be controlled by the autonomic nervous system because all of those changes that those organs make should be automatic. The autonomic nervous system is further subdivided into the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. Oops. Oh, okay. I guess that's all that I have. Thank you so much for listening.